What have I done? This is the Ninten plushie. Yes, it's embarrassing, because clearly I put a little too much effort into making it. He's huge. The scale was a bit of an accident. I wanted a big plushie, but geez. Although I'm actually a bit happy with how large the doll became, it's more fun to hug this way. For those of you who don't know, Ninten is the main protagonist in the video game Mother for the Famicom, never released in America. Although you can play the unreleased American prototype on the internet via emulator. The Mother series is known as Earthbound in the USA, the series that Ness and Lucas are from. He is widely unknown and is typically mistaken for Ness, considering his game never saw an international release, and Mother 2, Ness's game, is far more popular. He is also dressed a lot like Ness. For this very reason, many fans depict Ninten wearing the outfit he is seen wearing in the Japanese commercial for Mother. However, it is technically non-canon. I chose to put him in his red, white, and blue commercial clothing to help differentiate him, as well as keep his cookie bite eyes and the strange orange lines under his eyes, even though they take away from the cuteness factor. I didn't want to omit any canon details just because they make him look ugly. I decided to combine every version of him that exists. His commercial version, his official figure, and the way he appears in-game. On his figure, his nose is just below his eyes in a pretty ordinary location. But in-game, his nose is way the hell up on his forehead. The other characters don't have their noses on their foreheads, so I see it as one of his defining features. I put the two together and put his nose in a sort of middle area, even though it resembles his figure more. I kind of wish I put his nose higher. Now, let me explain this right now. Why is the doll so pale? He's like vampire pale. I searched for months for the appropriately colored fabric. I was being very picky because Ninten has the loveliest light orange skin. I really wanted to get it spot on, but after buying fabric I wasn't satisfied with, I was like, whatever, and just got ivory colored fabric. I think next time I'll try to dye the fabric the appropriate color. It doesn't bother me much because I like pale skin anyway. That and Ninten is a sickly asthmatic with a weak immune system. Maybe he's pale because he has the flu. He has articulated joints in the elbows, wrists, shoulders, knees, and hips. The joints do not utilize any metal parts, and there is no armature in the doll, so he remains cuddly throughout. There are no hard, pokey areas. His face was hand-embroidered. The eyes were done with a satin stitch, and the mouth and eyebrows were a line stitch. The pink in his cheeks and the orange lines were painted on with acrylic craft paint. His hair is hyperlon fiber. Part of it was a wig I cut up. But even a human-sized wig didn't even cover half of his scalp. The remainder was about 15 to 20 feet of additional hair wefts. I eventually ran out of purchased wefts and had to re-weft the extra hair I trimmed off. I bought the wig and wefts from artowigs.com. It took an entire month just to do the hair. One painful, agonizing month. Oh my gosh, when I was done, I was like, I'm glad I chose to make it more realistic as opposed to the fabric hair. The outcome is nice, although the hair feels a bit fake and it's kind of prickly. His clothing is removable, but he has permanent underwear for obvious reasons. His permanent underwear has a decorative elastic on it that also functions as a belt that keeps his shorts on. When I made the doll, I tried to get him as close to canon as possible, but his collectible Band Presto figure doesn't have much detail on it. To compensate for this, I speculated what he might have looked like if he appeared in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, where his series successors, Ness and Lucas, appear in great detail. Detail that surpasses their original presentations in their respective games. I took tons of screenshots of the two characters to determine their anatomy. I observed the length of their limbs, their proportions, as well as the way their clothing was sewn. I wanted to aim for realism using the appropriate fabrics for each article of clothing, except the shoes as to retain the softness of the doll's feet. Creating his shorts was a project in itself. I took into consideration the location of each individual rivet on their shorts, and even the direction of the seams. I had to learn how real jeans are made and use actual denim as opposed to ordinary blue fabric to create as authentic a look as possible. The pockets on the shorts are fully functioning, both front and back. The rivets I had to hammer in by hand. Although the rivets on Ness and Lucas in Brawl appear to be a bronze color, I went with this nickel color instead because it was the only type of jean rivet I could find, and it looks nice with Ninten's color scheme anyway. The jean shorts even have belt loops, although they serve no real purpose on the doll. The shorts attached to the doll's body using metal snaps within the shorts, unseen from the outside. His shirt is just a typical white cotton shirt. I couldn't find the right fabric for the shirt, so I had to make it myself. Yeah, I couldn't find some simple red, white, and blue striped fabric. The stripes were usually in the wrong order or weren't thick enough or something small like that. I cut the shirt in half to fit him properly, shortened the shoulder area, and painted the stripes on the screen printing paint. It took a horribly long time and was rather unpleasant. Hopefully I can avoid having to do that in the future. The paint required me to dry iron it to make it settle in the fabric. It was the first time I had ever ironed an article of clothing before. His neckerchief is just an ordinary bandana I got at a craft store. His shoes are sewn out of a solid calico fabric with white fleece bottoms. His socks are everyday human socks. His hat was sewn from the same type of fabric as his shoes. Looking at Ness in Brawl, he has 5 seams in his cap. I almost decided to put in 5 seams, but when I got the Banpresto Ninten statue, I immediately took note of the fact that Ninten has 8 seams in his hat, not 5. It's a good thing I got that thing. The brim of his hat is sculpted out of upholstery foam, so it is soft and durable. It is the only part of the doll that has a foam core. The making of his body took some brainstorming. Again, looking at his figure, Ness, and Lucas, as well as the other characters of similar shape in the series, I tried to determine their anatomy. At first look, they appear to have torsos that are egg-shaped and about the size of their heads, but it can be assumed that they're actually rather skinny under their clothing. However, this conflicts with the way their clothing hangs off their bodies. The way their clothing hangs gives them all the definition their bodies have.
So you intentionally made me fat?
Well, sort of. Just so your clothing would fill out and duplicate the wideness of your collectible figure.
I don't want to be fat.
I know, but if I made you skinny, your clothing wouldn't define your shape alone. So I had to fill the clothing out with your mass to create the open, airy look your shorts and sleeves have. I'm going to keep the construction methods a secret because I'd like to hide them to myself. But I created the doll through methods I call fleshing and skinning. Skinning works well to hide the joints and allow for the creation of kneecaps and elbows, which are important for the articulation as it prevents the joints from bending the wrong way, although not by much. Skinning helps in making other small details like the nose, which wouldn't have been seamless without it. To get an idea of how long the skinning process takes, it took me 3 hours to skin one arm. The entire doll is stuffed with polyester fiber fill, and a lot of it too. But it doesn't end there. I couldn't stop there. I had to go over the top. The doll sings. No joke. He sings. If you squeeze him, he sings an 8-bit version of the 8 Melodies from Mother. The 8 Melodies is a song in the game that bears a very important purpose, and it's absolutely beautiful. I had to find a recordable, squeezable doll speaker that could hold at least 30 seconds of sound and took a common type of battery. This was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Most of the speakers I could find would come in bulk packages of hundreds. Usually they didn't record a long enough sound. None of the local craft stores had the one I needed, but lucky me, I came across the perfect one on Amazon eventually. Ninten had to sing. I wasn't going to tolerate him not singing. The speaker component is inside a zipper pouch on the doll's spine. The pouch is lined with the same fabric I used for his skin. Although this doll is the best thing I've made in my life so far, he does have some flaws. I won't bother mentioning some because they're just errors that I, as the maker of the plushie, notice or feel upset about that other people probably wouldn't notice or wouldn't see as a flaw. You know, like something didn't come out how I wanted it to or something. His head flops a little, which doesn't surprise me, but it does worry me that his neck will tear. I expected this would happen, but I didn't think anything of it. I have devised a hypothesis on how to prevent this next time. However, no matter how much he flops, his neck doesn't even come close to tearing. After all, his neck is both sewn and glued tightly. His fingers are a bit short. They seem shorter on the doll than they do on the pattern sculpt, but that should be an easy fix on the pattern. The palms are also a bit chubby, which is a common problem on plushie hands, but I figured this would happen and don't really mind it. I could probably avoid this by sculpting foam cores for the hands. His wrists are also a bit fat. They don't taper into the hands well. I will have to sculpt them better. I'm not particularly a fan of how his hat came out. I think using a thicker fabric would help. Still, he is pretty believable. It looks as though he was beamed right out of the video game and is sitting at the foot of my bed. For a while, I thought the doll was incredibly creepy and was scared people would be disturbed by it. eventually calmed down and realized it could be much worse. The only thing creepy about my doll is how big he is. This doll was technically a prototype. I was experimenting just to see if I could make one. Although it was hard, it was fun, and the overall end result made it so worth it. I started him in December 2012 and finished him in May 2013. It really shouldn't have taken that long, though. I didn't work on him every day. I was also dealing with college. I will undoubtedly be making a Nest plushie of a similar style in the future. I mean, inevitably, it is going to happen. I will record the exact amount of hours I spend making him this time, so long as I remember to. I will possibly make Lucas, I don't know. I'd also like to try and make a miniature version of the same type of doll. That is, with articulated joints and skin. I want to make a mini of Jeff. I don't know why, I just do. I don't have any clue what I would do with him. I just want to make him for some reason. Maybe I'm drawn to the idea of challenging myself to make his glasses or something. I don't know. I also want to make a mini of the villager. And Spock.